Look, let's talk about male violence, violence against women. And we know the rallies that took place yesterday, more will take place this afternoon. The PM will attend the one in Canberra that's going to happen this afternoon. Look, I guess, Karen, it's no wonder this has really exploded again as an issue after what happened at Bondi Junction, the women killed there, and after 2 women were killed this week, one in regional New South Wales, one in regional Victoria. This has really escalated a lot of tension on this.
Yes, it's become another moment, and there are groups in the community that are organising these rallies to take the opportunity to send a message about the need not only for long-term change, attitudinal change, and that's, you know, it's one of these intransigent issues that really change needs to start when people are children, and about how women and men are interacting, about respect and about the casual lack of respect that continues throughout a lifetime, but also immediate change, you know, support for services to support women in danger, you know, women's refugees, there's money required and assistance required immediately. So those are the 2 messages. And I think it's interesting that senior members of government are now seeking to make it clear that they're attending these rallies. I think they don't want this to be seen as a rally against the government. So they're coming to these rallies to say, we agree with you, we support these ambitions. They don't want it to be, we're having a crack at the government, and I think that's probably partly why they're wanting to show up, not only because they do endorse the sentiment, but to not have that separation, us and them thing.
Is that enough, do you think, Bridget?
Is it enough that they're attending rallies?
Well, they're saying that this is something that has a shared responsibility, society needs to change, or does government need to do more?
I don't fully think that they've met the moment, and I appreciate that they're attending the rallies today, which is really welcome. It's a wonderful step from the Prime Minister. He put a short statement out this weekend, again, really welcome, that he's sensing the level of distress, anger and grief in the community that Australian women are feeling right now. But I think they've been a little bit slow, and that's been the analysis from a lot of leaders in domestic and family and sexual violence that we have in Australia, that there's been this push for a long time, for years back actually. I mean, the scale of the violence we're seeing this year is horrendous, it's unacceptable.
One woman every 4 days.
Yes, at the moment it is, and multiple women killed in April alone. But as you know, I investigated the deaths and the disappearances of Aboriginal women coming up to 2 years ago. We asked the Prime Minister on that program at the time, and he didn't have time to speak to us then. So, he might have been busy, but we were actually trying to get federal ministers to look at this issue even back then, 18 months ago, and this has been a crisis all the way back since when Rosie Batty was talking about this 10 years ago. I mean, we can't say that we didn't know. We've known that this is one of the most serious crises we have to grapple with as Australian women and as a society. We hear from ministers that there needs to be increased levels of respect towards women, and that men need to own that. Now, of course that is true, but I think the level of anger that we're seeing from Australian women, and there's a massive movement online, David, from young Australian, particularly from young victim survivors who are leading this movement, who are leading the rallies this weekend. What they're saying is we also need to acknowledge that there's so many women in danger right now. So it needs to, the prevention work that's really essential needs to be, as Karen said, coupled with some sort of collaboration from all the experts. I don't know whether a National Royal Commission is the answer on the repeat offenders, on men who go in and out of court and then end up murdering women in extremely violent circumstances. There needs to be Aboriginal women at the table, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women at the table immediately, because there are so many Aboriginal women in danger currently. We need to be listening to what's coming out from the Senate inquiry into missing and murdered women that's going on right now. And we have some of the world-leading experts in gendered violence in this country, and it seems to be that there's this call for the government to, obviously states and territories own this issue from a legislative and from a law enforcement perspective, but women are saying we want the Prime Minister to be leading this, to be talking about this. And I'll stop soon, but I'm really passionate about this issue.
This is good stuff.
And we need journalists to start asking questions at every single press conference and to be owning this. We need the press gallery, we need all presenters and journalists who are working in this country to grapple with this issue. It can't be that we just see these deaths of women as individual moments in time. If we're going to get big breaking news alerts for terrorism incidents, I think there's a legitimate discussion to be had about the way that we label these incidents.
And we've seen a bit of that this week. You know, I mean, the Sydney Morning Herald certainly went really hard on the Molly Ticehurst killing. There will be a National Cabinet meeting, a virtual one as I understand it, specifically on this issue. They're just working out when that can happen. But the line, Shane, from the federal government is we don't need another Royal Commission. We've seen them at the state level. New South Wales is looking at one. Maybe they'll do one. But we've already 2 years into a 10-year plan that has record funding to tackle domestic and family violence. Do you think, though, the pressure will grow for more?
There's always pressure for more. The last month and a half has amplified it, but you get into the issue, and Bridget's absolutely passionate about it, absolutely understandable, but you're talking about a societal change. How do you change society? And so much of this is at the societal level. It is at the boys and men level. And history is resplendent with failures. And I get, like, racism is one of the worst examples of that. And how we, as a society, trying to change attitudes from young to old is extremely difficult. And, like, you can throw money at it. I think Bridget's absolutely correct. Asking questions constantly about it.
Difficult conversations also, Shane, need to be had about women's experience with the justice system, because we know for a fact that multiple women go to police forces and are often turned away for help. So it's not that women don't know that they need to go and get help, because they do. And that's a difficult conversation, because typically governments do not want to stand alongside police forces and say you're not doing the right thing. But in many cases, commissions of inquiry and inquests have found that women have been told to go away, or their responses have been really inadequate. And that's a difficult conversation for governments to have, but I do think it does need to be led from the federal level about why so many Australian women, either won't go to police because they don't think they will get help, and that they look at the justice system and think, why would I bother? And then we hear from the women who've been set on fire, run over, stabbed multiple times, beaten and killed, that they tried to get help before they died. Now, that's a real issue that does need federal leadership.
And to the point, David, about this elevating the status of violence against women alongside other kinds of issues like terrorism. It was interesting at the press club this week, the Director General of ASIO did confirm that incel, you know, people in the involuntary celibate movement, misogyny can be designated as terrorism, does fit the definition because that is an ideology. But then Commissioner Kershaw made the point that the difference here is it's the intent of the perpetrator. The perpetrator, to fit the definition, has to intend to be furthering a cause. The problem is oftentimes these events do further a cause like that, but if there's not evidence that the intent was there, that it was an act targeting an individual and not an act to further a cause, it falls short of the definition. Now, a lot of people will wrestle with that and say, well, hang on, it keeps happening, why can't we elevate it? But that is the definitional issue that we're getting trapped in. That's why it doesn't get designated the way other violence does.